It's time to turn back the clock and have a peek at 1984. As previously mentioned on the podcast I co-host, Film Utopia, we finally got around to covering 1984 on the show, so for a lengthy discussion about that, go have a listen. Here it is. But here, I wanted to do my usual take and pull out from the year films that I think stand out and are worth going back and investigating, have you not seen them, or the ones that just gave a general flavour to the actual year as a whole. So let's go, what do we got? Footloose saw Kevin Bacon really show the world how to rebel with your feet. How this got a remake decades later on is beyond me, but this one still stands out as what people were into at the time. Kenny Loggins apparently, and some truly embarrassing dance montages. You go 1984. Repo Man from British director Alex Cox is a film starring Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton. It's an American satire of sorts, made by the British, about a young punk who gets pulled into working for a car repossession company and ends up in pursuit of a car that may be connected with extraterrestrials. This was one of the first films I ever heard the term cult movie attached to it, and it earns it. Sticking with cult movies, the Hotel New Hampshire should have had cult movie attached to it. Instead, it's just underseen. It's also a baffling kaleidoscope of funnies meets the sads. This family go through utter hell and back, and yet the film retains a darkly comic look throughout it. You don't often get to see films like this. Just even trying to think of how to explain the plot is one hell of a task. If you thought Legends of the Fold featured a doomed family, then you're in need of seeing this. Had this been made today, it probably would have been written by Wes Anderson and given a very, very different visual look. Splash! Ron Howard hits it big with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah when Hanks falls in love with Hannah's mermaid. Yes, she can walk on two legs so long as they're dry, otherwise that is one giant tail with which Tom is only happy to chase. So no sex in the bathtub then. Oh, keep it clean, this one was aimed at kids. Police Academy has to be mentioned as it began here and ended up being a 7-movie franchise. From here on, it was literally a film a year for the first 6 movies. There is a returning and also rotating cast of regulars, all cheeky, all up to no good misfits, all getting into trouble whilst trying to learn what it is to be a police officer. It started off aimed at the saucy crowd, but by the end it was so PG friendly that it lost part of its identity. Romancing the Stone saw Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas and Danny DeVito team up for the first time out of 3 in the 80s in Robert Zemeckis' South American jungle kidnap adventure Jewel Caper. Surprisingly fun even today. The sequel, less so. The third film they made, unrelated, was truly funny. Here, though, Michael Douglas does his best Indiana Jones, Kathleen Turner does her best Danny L. Steele, and Danny DeVito is pretty much Danny DeVito. It's a fun, it's a lark, it's a gas. Friday the 13th Part 4 actually made a decent stab at Jason's franchise, and it is worth points. But as a short kid looking up at the toll shelves in a video store, that poster to me looked like a baked potato with a knife in it and ketchup everywhere. Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo came out in the same year. In the UK they were called Breakdance, and featured, well guess what? Worth a mention, as canon were not just slinging ninjas and Charles Bronson and Chuck Norris at us, we also had dancers too. Oh, and that's JCVD dancing in the background in the original. Well, we all had to start somewhere, right? And speaking of famous people in it, that is Ice-T as the DJ as well. Yeah, not really my kind of groove. I'll get on to him when he does Body Count. Oh boy, Shooter McGavin, say it ain't so. Okay, well hey, if you're up for a bit of Turbo, Ozone and Special K, wow, that means something completely different now, then these 3 dancers were here to bring the joys. An obvious one is The Karate Kid. It launched in 1984 and was one of the bigger hits of the year. With Cobra Kai being such a hit decades on later, it's worth revisiting the original series to see where it all started. 2010, Peter Hyams directed a very worthy sequel to Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. The tone is slightly different, there is a larger cast involved, but it's serious enough and shot well enough to make it worthy of your attention if you know the original novel or the original film. Hyams is definitely the underdog that was doing very interesting science fiction in the early part of the 80s. Germany jumped on board the big blockbuster fantasy wagon and succeeded with The Neverending Story. The film and the song are both fondly remembered, as is the death scene of a horse. All of Me saw Steve Martin have half of his body get possessed by Lily Tomlin's dead heiress. The physical comedy alone that Martin had to portray on screen is simply golden. This isn't one of his most fondly remembered movies. In fact, if anything, it's one of his most forgotten, but it's definitely worth revisiting for the physical performance alone. Body Double is Brian De Palma's ode not just to Hitchcock and Diallo, but also to himself. Body Double is also Brian De Palma's greatest hits of sorts as he retreads old ground, but still within a narrative that is fun, and even almost breaks the fourth wall with a Frankie Goes to Hollywood video in the middle. Sex, murder, obsession, and very, very, very large drills are going through the floor on this one. Once Upon a Time in America was Sergio Leone's final movie and saw Robert De Niro get back into the gangster gig once more. It's epic, very long, and doesn't pull any punches. A cinematic masterpiece for sure. Ghostbusters, well, who hasn't seen it? It's here, the humour is borderline offensive these days, but it was at a time when it was acceptable for Bill Murray to be an utter cad. Again, one of the biggest hits of the decade. Amadeus is the biography of Mozart. Tom Hulce chuckles his way through the role, but F. Murray Abraham is the convincing and jealous fellow composer who stands out and earns his Oscar win. A beautiful piece of artistry about one of the world's best composers, thanks to Milos Forman, adapted from the stage play. James Cameron launched many careers with The Terminator. Science fiction was taken by storm in the cinema, and he had only just begun. Another new contender came in the face of Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street, who quickly became the box office horror champ of the 80s. Eddie Murphy slipped into the leading role of Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop with absolute ease, and another franchise starter. There is the apex of comedy action right here, and this was the very character to do it with. One more memorable hit in the form of Gremlins took It's a Wonderful Life and littered it with little green monsters. Hilarious, scary, tense, magical. This had everything from great practical effects to a wonderful, vibrant electric score from Jerry Goldsmith. Do you still remember the rules? Werewolves were quite a thing in the early 80s, and one of the best was The Company of Wolves in Neil Jordan's take on Angela Carter's feminist retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. This one is strictly for adults. This beautifully shot film meshes folktales with sexual awakening and the werewolf horror subgenre. And finally, we have This Is Spinal Tap, still the best mockumentary ever made. The cast and director also serve as the writers, and they cut down hours of material into a tight and hilarious narrative. Get yourself the Blu-ray, you will find over an hour of worthy extra material to watch. Thank you, Rob Reiner, for starting and ending your career with these lovely chaps. So that's what coloured 1984. Job done. Good boy.
Good boy.